as we get ready for the second day of the Sweet 16. And oh, by the way, we've got plenty of day one of the Sweet 16 to talk about. The Kansas State Wildcats are Elite Eight bound for the first time since 2018. They will take on the Owls of Florida Atlantic coming up late afternoon on Saturday. We are going to talk all about the incredible win for the Wildcats last night over Michigan State, an all-time NCAA tournament game. We had superstar performances on both sides, including a true supernova moment for Marquise Noel. We had drama from the very beginning, a close game from the very beginning. There was no lead at any point in the game by more than 9 points. That was the biggest lead. We never got to double digits at any points. Michigan State never led by more than 4 in the game. It was close. It was competitive from the very beginning until the very end. We had great defensive moments, incredible shot making from both sides, and we're going to talk all about the historic win for K-State last night over Michigan State. We are also going to hear from the K-State players and Coach Jerome Tang. They are actually going right now, so we're going to get that audio a little bit later on. The players and Coach Tang all speaking at the same time. So we'll get you some of that audio coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. And we will talk all about what happened last night at Madison Square Garden. We would love to, of course, get your thoughts on what happened for K-State last night and the huge win over Michigan State. Hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429. And, of course, the comment section open on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our channel. Go check out, by the way, our instant reaction post-game show from last night. Dan, myself, and Fulton all went live on YouTube and Facebook as well to break down the K-State win over Michigan State. So if you want to go check out our thoughts from immediate aftermath of last night's Sweet 16 game, head to YouTube, go check that out, and subscribe while you're there as well. We've also got some non-K-State stuff to get to today. We'll talk about the rest of the NCAA tournament. Gonzaga versus UCLA last night. That was awesome. Those two teams do nothing but play incredible games in the NCAA tournament. UConn beat Arkansas's brains in, and as much as I wanted KU to get to the Sweet 16, and I think I told you this, I would have been totally cool saying, you know what, defending champs, you get to the second weekend, that means you won 2 tournament games. I'm good with that. That's a good run. Everything else after that, kind of gravy. And KU would have lost to UConn last night. Almost every team in America would have lost to UConn last night. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was kind of like we discussed on yesterday's show that everything that Arkansas was that was an advantage for them over Kansas, UConn was more of that.
Yes.
Arkansas is deep. UConn is deeper. Arkansas has length. UConn has more length and size. And UConn also shot the ball really well, while Arkansas has never really shot the ball particularly well outside the paint, and add it all up. And that was probably the result last night. Going into last night's games, I felt the most confident in happening.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would look quite like that, but no surprise that UConn is marching on.
No, not one bit of surprise. We know Florida Atlantic obviously beat Tennessee. That's why they're playing K-State coming up tomorrow. So we'll talk a little bit about that game. We'll also get you some picks for tonight's game as well. 4 more Sweet 16 games coming up tonight starting at 5:30, which you'll all be able to hear right here on 580 WIBW on Westwood One tonight. We've got some Chiefs news and notes to get to today. The Chiefs have, in fact, been busy today. They're bringing back Blake Bell. They are making some other signings on the defensive line. We'll talk all about that bottom of this hour with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. And that should about cover it. Oh, by the way, we'll find our weekly champion and what is wrong with you, too. That is all coming up. That and so much more between now and the end of the show today at 5:30 right here on 580 Sports Talk. And again, let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about, anything from last night's game, this Saturday, whatever it might be, on the text line 785-272-9429. And then you can, of course, hit us up on YouTube as well, Sports on 580 WIBW. Already have some shouts out in the YouTube comments, in fact, for the post-game show last night. Again, if you haven't checked it out, go watch it. Really fun stuff, I thought. Dan Fulton and I talking all about that K-State win. And that's where we are going to start this edition of 580 Sports Talk as well. We all watched the game. If you are listening to the show, I'm almost certain you watched that game last night or have watched highlights since or whatever it might be. And more than anything that happened, individual performances, I thought Ish Massoud obviously came up huge. Keontae Johnson had the rare quiet 22-point game because he was maybe the 3rd or 4th biggest impact player, it felt like, for K-State, at least at certain moments last night. He still ended up with 22 and 6 for the game. I thought the defense showed up in some key moments. Shot making for both teams was incredible. And I hate to sometimes go back to the very basic surface level narratives and make that a big story about a game, because we talked so much going into it about Marquise Noel. He's this rising star in college basketball in his final year, and he's the transfer story, and he's the short guy. The way you hear these TV crews talk about him, you'd think he was like subhuman, like he didn't have rights, or he was some sort of alien species, like, oh, tiny baby, only 5'8" on the court. No, he's a grown-ass man, and he's an incredible basketball player.
Everybody loves the small guys. Like, the small guys are always the underdogs.
They're like gawking at him like they were, he was in a traveling zoo or something. No, he's a darn good basketball player. But the fact that he returns home to New York at Madison Square Garden, already on this incredible tear he's been on really all season, but especially now in March, and to just go supernova on the biggest stage, to set an NCAA record with 19 assists in a tournament game, to come up with the defensive play of the game at the very end. By the way, I don't know what the hell Michigan State was doing at the end of the game. Shoot the ball. You're down 3. There's 12 seconds. Shoot the ball.
Yeah, you can't not get a shot.
And he made some of the most incredible shots, even though he kept trying to take the logo 3, and I think it got further and further away from the rim every time he shot it.
It really did.
He still made a couple incredible shots. The lean in shot clock beating 3 after he hurt his ankle.
Like, every time they ran offense, they got an easy layup.
Okay.
Or an easy shot. Like, if you run offense there at the end of regulation or at the end of overtime, maybe you don't have to sweat it out so bad. I don't know. But it did. It felt like it felt like everybody was okay. The way that Noel is playing, you kind of live with whatever decision he makes. It must be the right one. Everything he's touching right now is turning to gold.
Right.
I expected him to make those shots. Everybody on the floor and everybody on the K-State sideline figured, well, the way he's playing tonight, yeah, that's probably going to go in.
The one that hit the backboard that just missed the rim entirely, it went up, and I thought, oh my God, that's going in. And it wasn't close, but you just believe, because he's playing so well, and he's made so many of those. I had a buddy of mine actually text me. He's not a local guy, so he was just watching to watch, and he said, does this guard for K-State always think he's Damian Lillard? And I said,
yes.
Well, yes, he does, but generally speaking, he's made a lot of those over the course of the year. But in a game where it honestly felt to me like K-State was the better team the entire game. Like, honestly, and this isn't a dig at K-State, it's more of a credit to Michigan State. I thought K-State should have won that game in regulation, and probably by a couple possessions. It felt so much easier for K-State over the balance of the game. Like, every score Michigan State had in the first half, it felt like it took every ounce of energy they had to make it happen. Whereas K-State gets the ball to the right wing, reverse it all the way around, corner 3, bang. Like, it felt smooth. And Noel specifically, it looked easy for him before he rolled his ankle, but he makes it so much easier for everyone around him, because those passes are absurd. He's got almost unlimited range. He is the piece that makes things feel so smooth. And in recent memory, and again, it's crazy to say this because it was a 5-point game that went to overtime and was in doubt until the final possession of the game in overtime. It didn't really feel like it was that much of a sweat for K-State on the court like it did on the scoreboard, which I think is a credit to the Wildcats and how they played and how Noel played.
I think free throws were a big reason that Michigan State stayed in the game. I thought that was the whole reason they were in the game at the half.
Which is wild, because K-State's a really good free throw shooting team.
Yeah, and they didn't shoot them great early. They were just 4 of 8 in the first half, while Michigan State was a perfect 9 of 9. And Michigan State ended up being 18 of 22, but missed a couple of big ones in the overtime session that would prove to be pretty costly. Actually, just missed one in the overtime, but missed one in the second half. That was a pretty costly miss as well. Michigan State's a frustrating team to play against because they do the things that well-coached teams do.
Yeah, they do.
They take advantage of their second chance opportunities. They make their free throws. It felt like every time Kansas State was threatening to pull away, they answered from the 3-point arc. And I think the dam was about to break for the Wildcats when Marquise Noel got hurt. And you could see how that threw the Wildcats off their moorings a little bit, and it allowed Michigan State. They went on a 9-2 run while Noel was on the bench and took the lead in the game, and Kansas State and Michigan State kind of resumed punch trading mode, basket trading mode from that point forward. It says here on the stat sheet, Michigan State shot 59% from the field in the second half. You could have told me they shot 159%, and I'd be like, yeah, that adds up.
Yeah.
It felt like they weren't missing any shots.
And 2, I'm sorry to cut you off, but 2, and I mentioned it earlier without getting into specifics, Tyson Walker was awesome. He was so good. And it felt to me like a lot of the attention on the broadcast was about Noel. Had this game gone the other way, we'd be talking the same storyline about Tyson Walker and the fact that he made big shot after big shot as the guy who left town and then came home to play in his hometown at Madison Square Garden.
Well, it was all their guards. Jaden Akins was 4 for 5 from 3. Towards the end of the game, particularly when Desi Sills fouled out, Kansas State couldn't cope with A.J. Hogard getting downhill.
Yeah.
Michigan State, you mentioned Kansas State got a lot of easy offense, and they did. They do. As a matter of course, Kansas State gets a lot of layups. The offense they run, the passes that Noel throws, they get a lot of offense at the rim. Michigan State doesn't generally get that, but as the game wore on, as they were able to get a good matchup up top, because Cam Carter's not the defender that Desi Sills is, and Marquise Noel on one good ankle isn't the defender that he would typically be. And Michigan State started taking advantage of some one-on-ones and getting the ball downhill and making some tough finishes around the rim. So I thought all 3 of their guards were really good, and the reason why Michigan State was able to hang tough. But at the end of the game, when you need to make a play, Kansas State doesn't just make a play. They throw a 30-foot alley-oop for a backwards slam dunk by Keontae Johnson. Like, what even is that?
Yeah.
We talked about it last night on the post-game reaction. The cinematic feel that this Kansas State season has had, the feeling I have had watching this team that someone must be writing this, that there must be some kind of script to this, that this is all so Hollywood, the way this has all come together, the way some of these games have gone, the way some of these games have finished. That play is preposterous. Ish Massoud, obviously Marquise Noel getting the literal headlines in New York today, but Ish Massoud's coming up. That's a homecoming for him too.
Yes,
and
it was.
He knocks down probably the biggest shot of the game, that corner jumper with the shot clock winding down off the out of bounds play that extended the Kansas State lead to 3 and made it so Michigan State would have to shoot from 3 there in the final seconds. Big moment for Ish Massoud. Really, everybody, Bebe played a minute and a half, and it was immediately clear that he didn't belong on the floor in that game. So the 7-man rotation that Kansas State rolled with, all of those guys brought something to the table.
Yep.
Nobody took anything off the table last night. They all brought something, whether it was David Gasson making all 5 of his shots or Cam Carter coming up with some big shots, 12 points, 6 rebounds, playing hard on both ends. Still learning as a defender as a sophomore, but busted his butt on both ends in his 37 minutes. And Naquan Tomlin with 11 points. You mentioned Keontae with somehow a quiet 22, even though he started and finished the game for all intents and purposes with alley-oop dunks. But it all comes back to Noel, right? And he is now not just the story of Kansas State's season. He is now the story of the NCAA tournament. This has a chance to go down as his tournament in a way that, like, historically, that's really rare, that we think of a year of the NCAA tournament and we remember one guy. Like, that's super rare.
Yeah.
His guy, Kemba Walker, is one of those guys. The 2011 NCAA tournament, that's the Kemba Walker tournament.
Yes.
That's the tournament where Kemba Walker took over the show and he made it his tournament. 1988 was Danny Manning's tournament. Yeah. There are, historically speaking, examples of that, of a player dominating a tournament run in such a way that we come to define that run by that one player. Very, very rare. Marquise Noel is the defining player of the NCAA tournament right now. People are fawning over him, raving about him, and it's not just because of the uniqueness of Marquise Noel, the 5'8" point guard, the transfer, like all that backstory. It's not just that. It's he's making clutch plays. He's making highlight reel plays. He's making smart plays. He's making winning plays. The risk he took to reach in and poke the ball away on the final defensive possession of the game, because if he gets that wrong, if he's off by an inch and he connects across the arm, I'm looking at the box right now. He wouldn't have fouled out on that, but it would have been 3 free throws with a chance for Michigan State to tie there at the end of overtime. If he's wrong on that, if he doesn't time it right and he doesn't get all orange, that's a problem. But again, confidence to make the play. He knocks the ball away. He finishes the game with the dramatic layup at the other end. And it's just so much fun to watch him do this. And the joy, like we've talked about this year, Jerome Tang being like a fountain of joy
and
positivity for his program and for his players. And you just feel that watching Kansas State, that they are playing with love and they are playing with joy. And it sounds corny when you say it out loud. It sounds so corny. I feel corny saying it out loud, but it's true. It's real. When you watch these guys, that corny stuff, that hokey Hollywood stuff, that's real. That's what these guys are feeling. That's how these guys are playing as they go through this tournament. And it's inspiring and it's exciting and it's fun. It's exhilarating to watch this team play. And for Marquise Noel to be on the back page of the New York Post and the New York Daily News today, the tabloids, to be called the King of New York on the back of the New York Post sports section, the sports section that has brought many sports heroes to heel over the years with its caustic back page tabloid headlines, and that has made legends out of other, in a city that does sports legends still to this day, bigger than any other city in our country. To make a legend out of Marquise Noel, all 5'8" of him, man, I'm not worried about his ankle injury today because I don't think his feet have touched the ground since the end of last night's game. He's not putting any weight on that thing. He's floating right now on air. I know I would be if I were in his shoes. What a neat moment. What a spectacular performance. And it will probably be the one that we remember, the performance that we remember from this tournament for all time, unless he outdoes it on Saturday night. And right now, wouldn't put it past him.
Let me ask you this, because I know if I asked Jerome Tang this question, he would use the quote that's kind of become the team theme during this tournament, the crazy faith theme that he keeps talking about and what that means. Do you think this K-State team right now has a defining characteristic? And I'm not talking necessarily about they shoot the three really well. They move the ball, not even necessarily a basketball specific thing, but like a general topic about this team that defines who they are. And I bring this up thinking about last year's Kansas team that won the national championship. And I know, oh my God, you had to bring up KU, your KU grads. But I'm trying to get to a point here, though. Like, that team was tough. They were tough as hell. And they knew that no matter what the situation was, down a ton of points to Miami in the Elite Eight, down 15 points at halftime of the national championship game, down by, 17 at one point against K-State in the regular season in Manhattan. They knew we could be down 25 points until there's 2 seconds on the clock. We are going to feel like we can win this game. And we're going to prove to you that we can because we're just tough as hell. That was KU's defining characteristic last year. Is there one specific thing you think applies to this Kansas State team in that same kind of way?
Well, I think the way that what we've talked about is the crazy faith manifests is in the freedom with which they have played in this tournament. Because when you play free from fear. You play free from worrying about the consequences of, what if I don't get this right?
Right.
What if this pass is a millimeter off? What if I miss this shot? What if I gamble on this play and I get called for the foul? What if it goes wrong? The freedom from fear of negative consequences and the ability to just go ball and just play with freedom and play with joy. That's what I think about when I think about this team, the plays that they've made, the shots that they've been willing to take, the shots that they have made. They got down by 3. I don't remember. I think it's still a pretty good chunk of time left to play in the game. I think it was 60-57 was the score at the time. I'm not looking at the play-by-play. Maybe I should. I might have it on me. Cam Carter makes a 3-pointer. A shot that I don't know that I felt awesome about Cam Carter taking in the moment. And Cam Carter buries 3. It tied the game at 70 with 7.5 minutes to play. I'm looking at the play-by-play now. So Kansas State just gone down. Hauser hit the big 3. It's the biggest lead of the second half for Michigan State at last one possession. Cam Carter in the corner. He's comfortable. His feet are square. He's got a decent look at it. Why the hell not? Yep. A lot of other teams, the sophomore, the fourth leading scorer on the starting lineup, he's going to defer. He's going to look for somebody else to pass the ball to. But no, man, that's your shot. Take that shot. Everybody else on the floor thinks you can make it. Your coaches know you can make that shot. Take that shot. The freedom to just play, to not worry about the mistake, to not worry about the consequence, and just go play your game confidently is what I think about when I think about this Kansas State team.
And you know who I think embodies that more than anyone else? Even Cam Carter in that game last night, even Marquise Noel in general. The guy I think about when I think of that topic is Ish Massoud. And I brought this up on the post-game show on YouTube last night. He was in the doghouse at the start of the year. I mean, Jerome Tang got asked a question about him. I think it was still during non-conference play.
It was after the Nebraska game. I remember because I was there. I was in that post-game press conference at the T-Mobile Center after they beat Nebraska at the Wildcat Classic. And Massoud had been dealing with an injury, and he had worked his way back, and he was available. Everybody knew he was available to play against Nebraska and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerome Tang usually gives pretty thoughtful, pretty lengthy answers. Like, he likes to talk. He's a gregarious guy up on that podium, especially after wins. Somebody asked him why Massoud didn't play, and I don't remember the exact words or the exact quote, so I'm paraphrasing here, but it was a very curt and very sternly worded and sternly delivered answer from Jerome Tang. And the crux of it was, he's not bought in. We don't have him where he needs to be able to contribute for us. We have to have guys who are all the way bought in. We have to have guys who are all the way committed. And right then and there, in that moment, Ish Massoud was not one of those guys. And then a few weeks later, he hits the big shot in overtime to help them beat Baylor in Waco, and his confidence just soars from there. But he first had to earn his way back into the rotation, back into playing time. He had to earn that. That was not given to him just because he was one of the two guys back from last year's roster. He had to play his way, dig his way out of the doghouse. And not only has he done that, he's emerged as a pretty indispensable bench scoring piece for this team.
You can't leave him open, or he is going to hit the three. And we saw that with his first made three of the game against Michigan State. He was left wide open, top of the circle. If you're going to leave him there, he's going to knock down the shot. And playing free is not just, all right, roll the ball out, go play. Like, there's structure to playing free.
Freedom is not sloppiness. Don't conflate the two. And if you have any question about that, go look at the box score and see that Kansas State turned the ball over all of 5 times. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times they turned the ball over.
They posted a Booker T 5 times. 5 times turnovers. Like, he bought in. And now Ish Massoud is in a place where he can go out and he can shoot. It is catch, it is shoot. That is what you're going to do. And if you can't shoot, pass it right away. He has gotten into a spot where he is comfortable, where he knows what his role is, and he's really darn good at it. He's played better basketball in the last 2 weeks than we saw the entirety of last season. The first year and a half he was with K-State. It's guys like that who are bought in, they know the system, they know what they want to do, and they're comfortable. There's a calm confidence to it. And Noel's the same way. They asked him in the postgame last night, did you tell fans there, to watch this or to watch you? And said, man, I can't tell you what I said, or I can't talk about that. But there's this calmness and this confidence to them without it being cocky.
But then he proceeded to turn around and said, yeah, I was talking to Isaiah Thomas.
It happens sometimes.
One of the great point guards in the history of the game. Somebody who knows a little something about delivering an iconic performance on a sprained ankle. Game 6 of the 88 finals, I want to say it was. Like, he's woofing at Isaiah Thomas. He says, watch this. And then he goes and delivers a perfect assist on an alley-oop dunk to help win the game. Like,
see, but I wouldn't even call it like woofing.
I'm at a loss for words.
Like, he said it like, I'm going to do this. And not in an arrogant way, not in a cocky way, just, I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to win. And that's what the entire team embodied. Like, I think Keontae Johnson's the same way. Yeah, we're going to beat you. I'm going to go up, and I'm going to dunk this all over your head. And then I'm going to do the too short as I run away from it, and that's just what's going to happen. It's a confidence, but without the cockiness that often comes with it, especially when you're talking about 21 and 22-year-olds on a basketball court. We're going to talk so much more about this game and about what's still to come for K-State coming up later on in the show. Right now, we need to get to our first break. We'll talk some Chiefs later on with Matt Derrick, and coming up after this, we'll play a little Change My Mind here on 580 Sports Talk. Before we get to a quick round of Change My Mind and then Matt Derrick in a few minutes, we've got a pretty fun contest we have to let you guys know about. You may have heard that Thursday next week is opening day at the K. The Royals will start the regular season for Major League Baseball. We have some tickets we want to give away to some of the loyal listeners to the sports programming here on the Sports Voice of Kansas 580 WIBW. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to register a few entrants today. Next week, we are going to announce who wins the pack of tickets to Royals opening day. So this is a very simple process here. During the course of this segment, we need you to text in. Our text line number is 785-272-9429. We will have your phone number. It pops up on our thing, so we know you're from the 785 or the 316 or whatever. We just need you to text in your full name, first and last name. If it's just a first name, it's not going to count. We need to know your full name. Just the last name doesn't count. We need your first and last name texted in during the course of this round of Change My Mind. You will be registered to win our Royals tickets. We will announce the winner coming up in the early part of next week. So right now, text in 785-272-9429. Let us know, just first name, last name. You will be entered to win our pack of Royals tickets for next week's home opener or season opener and home opener on Thursday afternoon. You ever been to an opening day game, by the way?
Yeah, handful of times. Been to one in Denver, at least one that I can recall, and then one or two in Kansas City, I think.
I've never been to an opening day game.
This ballpark smells like hot dogs and optimism, man. It's a great time.
That's what I like to hear. Best smell in the whole world. So again, text in 785-272-9429. First and last name. You are entered or will be registered to be in our contest to win Royals tickets for opening day. All right, quick round to Change My Mind. Change My Mind. The best team playing right now in the NCAA tournament is the UConn Huskies.
Oh, man. They're playing really high level basketball right now. They're awfully deep. And unlike Alabama and Houston, who are dealing with some injury concerns for their best players, UConn's fully healthy. I would have to agree. I'm gonna agree with you on this. I think right now they kind of feel like the team to beat a little bit. Although we'll see how healthy Marcus Sasser and Brandon Miller look tonight.
That's true. Yeah, we'll have to see with them. Dude, Sonogo was killing Arkansas. They had absolutely no idea what to do with him. It was so fun to watch. We had it on during halftime of the K-State game and then put it on the second screen. Oh, that was a blast to watch UConn last night.
So, rapper Cameron was at the Kansas State game last night. Cameron was there with his old running partner, Mace. They were not friends for a while. Now they're friends again. Now they do an internet sports talk show called It Is What It Is.
Oh.
Think First Take, but like way better. Anyway, Cameron, he was a member of the Diplomats, the Dipset movement back in the early 2000s. Their music videos known for their garish use of throwback jerseys.
Yes.
Change my mind. Throwback jerseys, still cool.
Oh, no, they're absolutely cool. Absolutely. They are still cool.
You don't see them as much in the videos. Because you don't see videos. You don't see them as much like in the streets, I guess. But no, throwback jersey still very stylish.
No, I mean, especially if you're a sports fan. Like someone walks in and they're wearing like a Billy White Shoes Johnson jersey. I'm going to talk to them for the rest of the day. Like, why do you own that? That is so cool. Do you know how he got the name White Shoes? Like, I'm talking to him all day. No, any throwback uniform is cool. I'll wear my Donald Driver jersey someday soon.
Listen, of all of the impactful things that Marquise Noel has done, he had the guy who had the whole New York wearing pink in the early 2000s and had him wearing K-State purple in the front row last night.
That's pretty good.
Killer.
We're going to take a quick break. Matt Derrick's going to join us next on 580 Sports Talk. Let's go to Kansas City, where we talk to Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider, brought to you by Herman's Meat and Smokehouse. You can go find all of Matt's phenomenal work covering the Kansas City Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. He joins us every Friday for our Chiefs insider. Matt, before we get to the football, a little March sadness for both of our teams with losses in the round of 32 last week. So I tried to be as positive as I could last Friday, and it didn't work for either of us.
No, it really didn't, did it? I mean, I at least went in with pessimism before my Tigers gave me some hope. But man, that was about the most Missouri exit you can possibly get. I hate to say it.
Hey, well, I'm glad you said it. No, I'm just kidding. It was obviously tough for both of us. So we, I guess misery loves company when it comes to March Madness sometimes. Let's get to the NFL because the Chiefs have actually been very busy today. They're bringing back Blake Bell, reportedly. They are also going to sign Byron Cowart, a former 5th-round pick, former number 3 overall recruit in the country back in 2015, and also Phil Hoskins, who admittedly, Matt, I did not even know was a member of the Chiefs. He was on the practice squad back in January, and they re-signed him today as well. This is one of the busiest days the Chiefs have had since the offseason started.
Yeah, this is kind of, classic Brett Veach. You get to start getting to draft season. And, he's of the philosophy that, kind of wants to have a roster that you can go out and play a game with if you needed to. Certainly some of it's getting ready for the offseason program. You want to have a roster and you want to have it balanced out. But, he wants to be able to go into a draft, too, without saying, hey, we absolutely have to get numbers at this position. And therefore, you got to kind of get pigeonholed into taking some players maybe that you wouldn't otherwise do. So this is a little bit about just balancing out the roster. Blake Bell's probably obviously the biggest name in that group and been with the team for a couple of seasons and a couple of stints now. Last year was kind of a wash for him with the injury. So we'll see. I would expect that, he'd probably have a bounce back year as far as just how he's feeling and health-wise this year. The other guys, Phil Hoskins, was with the team before. They were interested in him. He was spent into the season on the practice squad. Technically has a ring because he was around for the Super Bowl run. And Coward kind of the same category. He's a veteran. He's been around for a while. He's got some experience, but he would be kind of a rotational piece as well if he makes the team.
Are you at all surprised that Blake Bell is coming back? And this isn't meant to be a slight at Blake Bell. He's good at what he does. And like you said, last year was a bit of a wash for him. But I feel like, we know we've got Kelsey still on this roster. No, Noah Gray is going to be back. We know that they re-signed Jody Fortson, who I believe was an exclusive rights free agent this year, if I'm not mistaken. And there's been a lot of talk, at least from, the Chiefs internet community, about drafting a tight end this year. What if Dalton Kincaid is there at the end of the first round? Do we want a 2nd or 3rd round tight end this year, possibly to be, the future successor to Travis Kelce? Are you a little surprised they brought back another veteran and are going into the offseason with 4?
Yeah, numbers-wise, not surprised. They kind of like to be there, and certainly, carrying a 5th tight end for this time of the year wouldn't be a deal breaker. The Chiefs have done that before, so I don't think numbers-wise this would be a problem if they're going to want to add another one. I thought there was a chance that Blake might not be back this year just simply because, the Chiefs, like you said, I think they might be in the market for a tight end. You still have Noah Gray around. You've got Jody Fortson that you want to get some looks at and some snaps with and continue to grow those guys a little bit. So what's the role for Blake Bell? They kind of, hey, they won a Super Bowl without him. Since even when he came back, he wasn't an active part of the team or anything. So I kind of thought there was a chance that he might be, shopping, but I do know from Blake's experience, I think this is the one team that he would rather be with. And, I imagine he probably had a lot of comparable contract offers. So they were probably in the ballpark. And when it comes down to that, if the Chiefs still want him back, I think Blake would always prefer to be in Kansas City.
We're talking to Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com here on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Friday at this time on the program. Matt is our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs insider. You can find Matt's work at ChiefsDigest.com and find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Another piece from the championship team found a new home this week. Quite a few have since the last time we had a chance to talk to you. But Mecole Hardman is headed to New York to join the Jets on a 1-year contract. When you look at the year-long contract and the relatively light financial load on that contract, are you surprised that the Chiefs maybe didn't make an offer or maybe weren't willing to bring Hardman back? Or do you feel like that was a relationship that had run its course either way?
I certainly thought there was a chance that he would be back. And there's part of me that thinks that it would have been smart for Mecole to come back to a situation that he knows. considering that he's probably going to have a condensed off season. The surgery for the core muscle injury is probably going to keep him out of a little bit of the off season workouts. If he's healthy enough to get on the field in May and get some work out with the Jets, I mean, that's great. But this is the time of year, we're getting close to it where you really start to figure out your quarterback situation, although the Jets haven't figured that out yet. And you start getting the works on the offense. So I thought that there was a reasonable chance that McColl might want to come back to KC just because he could maybe get a 1-year contract and in a comfortable setting. But, hey, you go to where the money and the opportunity is, the chance that the Jets were offering more. But a 1-year deal seems like the most likely outcome for McColl because with the injury, the numbers were probably going to be down for him. And if that's the case, I think you're McColl, you definitely would rather take the 1-year deal, try to put up a good contract season and hit free agency again next year because he's still a young guy.
With the free agent market dwindling for wide receivers, most of the big name guys, such as they are on this free agent market, having found new homes, do you think that the likelihood of the Chiefs acquiring a receiver from outside the organization, either via free agency or trade, has diminished pretty dramatically? Or do you think that the Chiefs maybe still have some irons in the fire and might be willing to spring a trade for a veteran wide receiver this offseason?
Yeah, part of me thinks that it is diminishing, which by my just saying that aloud means the Chiefs will probably sign a receiver in the next, 12 hours. But no, it does. I mean, obviously the pool of receivers that you're looking at, you were thinking those guys would be a good fit with the Chiefs. And it keeps shrinking. I mean, DJ Chark was another one that you thought, hey, maybe that's somebody the Chiefs would be interested in. But we also haven't heard a lot of noise about the Chiefs being interested in a lot of the free agents. Outside, there's obviously some fire with Odell Beckham Jr., but he's got some fire probably with a lot of teams. DeAndre Hopkins is another one that looks like it's not going to go the way the Chiefs maybe were interested or wanted it to be. Yeah, I think the one thing for the Chiefs is that with this market right now, as far as the trade value for receivers, they could still be in the market. Right now receivers aren't generating and getting back a lot of value in return. So two edges of that sword. One is that teams might be less likely to trade a receiver because the return right now isn't great. But if you're a buyer like Chiefs are, maybe you can find a bargain. Maybe there's a receiver out there that is worn out his welcome or, just isn't fitting in with his team that you could take an advantage of. But at this point, yeah, the opportunities seem to be dwindling for the Chiefs in the free agent market.
Do you think that barring a trade, that the Chiefs are maybe done for the time being adding outside talent to their roster, that they're going to be content with what they've done to this point and probably look towards the draft as their next opportunity to add to the roster?
No, I think they'll still be interested in the free agent market a bit because, one thing is that, Brett Veach certainly, he likes the value in the late rounds of the draft or late waves of free agency, excuse me. So I wouldn't be surprised if they still took some flyers on some guys, especially, there's a couple of guys I think have been passed over that might be of interest. I definitely thought that they would be interested in some interior defensive linemen and obviously have picked up a couple. I don't know if they would be interested in more, but there's a few positions that I think that they could certainly bulk up some numbers at. And I think they'll still be in the market for a few faces.
Chatting with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. It is our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk. You can find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course head to Chiefs Digest for all the best coverage of all things Kansas City Chiefs. Matt, looking ahead to the NFL draft, we are just over a month away from the start of the draft. And I know we talk all the time about the Chiefs' desire to be aggressive and to move up. But does this feel like a year, and I don't know how much you've dug into the first round prospects, and the Chiefs always have their list of probably anywhere from 15 to 20 guys who feel like true first round prospects. Does this feel to you like a year in which the Chiefs might try to move up early like they did last year in the first round to get another pick? Or is this maybe a year where it feels like more of the depth is in rounds 2, 3, 4, so maybe we see some later trades for the Chiefs?
Yeah, that's a great question because it does seem like there's a few positions in which there's going to be some real value in the length of the draft. And we know that when that happens, Brett Veach does like to kind of pile up some picks in some places. Last year being a good example. I mean, they kind of, had a lot of picks in the middle portion of the draft and late rounds and took advantage of that. But I think they're going to be wide open. The thing is that being at 31, it puts you in a really tough spot. I mean, being late in the first round means that you're probably not going to get true first round value at 31. I mean, most teams, and the Chiefs, chief among them, will typically have anywhere from 15 to 20 players on their board with a first round grade. And so odds are at 31, you're not going to get a player that you've got a first round grade on. You're going to get a second round player. And if that's the case, then, you're either in one of two spots. You either want to move up or you want to move back. And we've seen it go both ways. When the Chiefs took Clyde in 2020, they didn't have a market. They didn't have an opportunity to move back, even though they wanted to. Last year, obviously they wanted to move up, especially to get a cornerback, and they were able to do that. So I think Brett Veach does a really good job of just keeping his options open, that if there's a player that they like that starts to drop and gets into the late teens, he'll be looking for some opportunities, especially if he thinks that the player that's not going to drop to 31. So, and this year they've got the currency to move up. So they're not in the spot where they would need to move some picks in order to pick up some later round picks. They've got enough as it is to, I think, be players on every day of the draft. But I think there's still a possibility that if there's a player that they like to start to drop, you get to 20 or 21 on the draft board, I think that's when you better start paying attention.
To build on that point, Matt, and I actually want to tie in something here that I saw on Twitter the other day. It seemed to be on Chiefs Twitter kind of a battle of the numbers nerds and the tape nerds. And I'm just curious about your perspective on something of a philosophical question. Do you believe that you can truly, pinpoint having the guy at a specific position? Or do you think that it is maybe a smarter approach at a position of need to just throw a bunch of picks or a bunch of numbers or a bunch of cash at multiple players to fill it? So as an example, at defensive line, defensive end, let's say the Chiefs still feel like they need another guy who can start opposite George Karlaftis on the edge. Do you think it makes more sense to say, hey, we think a player who's available at number 20 is going to be our best superstar option, let's trade a bunch of picks to go get him? Or do you think it might make more sense to say, hey, we can get similar production cheaper a little bit later on, so let's just use multiple day 2 or day 3 picks on that guy? Where do you sort of fall on, or which side of that argument do you think you fall on?
I'm going to give you almost a complete cop-out here. I'll be honest. I mean, I to a certain degree feel like picks 25 through probably 45 are all the same. I don't know if there's really a lot of distinction or value there, because I think with a lot of NFL teams, talking about those first round picks, most teams only have maybe 15 to 20 players that they feel like are true first round value. And not every team's list is the same. So you're right. I mean, there's a pretty good chance you get to 25, even a player that you like is not there. So to me, I would rather have more opportunities to take some shots on players than to take somebody that I'm not enamored with and not in love with. I mean, if I'm going to take a player in the first round, with a pick that's valuable, I want it to be somebody who's got all the metrics that, their performance is there, the production is there, they pass the eye test, they pass the metrics test as far as, being the right size and having the right length of positions, all of those things, the athleticism. I mean, I want to be able to check off all those boxes. And if I can't, I mean, I would rather have, say 2 third-round picks than maybe number 27. I mean, I feel like at that point, you probably have just as good a chance at hitting on one of those picks as you do of hitting on number 27. I mean, your odds kind of go down once you reach a certain point of the first round. And like I said, I think there's a lot of drafts that you can look at and say, 25 to 45, those players are all the same. And there's not necessarily a lot of distinction or odds of them becoming stars or big players. Not a huge difference between them.
Awesome stuff, as always, from Matt Derrick. He covers the Chiefs like a blanket over at ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick, and he joins us every Friday here on 580 Sports Talk for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. Matt, real quick, because we won't talk to you again until after opening day, real fast, what is the Royals' record going to be this season?
I'm incredibly bullish because I really think the pitching staff's going to respond to the changes.
All right.
I love everything I'm hearing. I'm going to go 82 wins. I'm drinking the
Kool-Aid. No! Hey, you and Fulton could start a Royals Optimist Club, I think.
There you go. Maybe we need to own a podcast. Come on, let's do it.
I love it. Matt, thank you as always so much for the time. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Take care, guys.
That is the best of the best, Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. That's going to do it for this first hour of 580 Sports Talk. Come on back for the 4 o'clock hour. We'll hear from Jerome Tang. We'll play What Is Wrong With You. And we will also talk to an FAU guest, Kevin Fielder from 247 Sports, to talk all things FAU Owls. That's all next hour on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk just getting started. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. If you missed the first hour, head to our website. That's 580wibw.com. Go to the podcast tab and click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the podcast version of the show broken down hour by hour. Of course, we're taking your thoughts on everything we're talking about on the show today, especially the Kansas State Wildcats and their impending trip to the Elite Eight. You can hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429. You can also jump into the comment section on YouTube. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Go subscribe if you haven't yet. We've got so much good stuff going up on the YouTube every single day. Our short form videos. Last night we had our live instant reaction post-game show that went up, and it was a lot of fun breaking that all down. Myself, Dan, and Fulton as well. So go check that out. All of our game reactions, all of that can be found on our YouTube channel, along with our show live streams. Again, that's Sports on 580 WIBW. We're going to talk some K-State versus FAU a little bit later on this hour. We'll be joined by Kevin Fielder from Owls247, FAU's 24/7 sports website. He's going to join us from Madison Square Garden and New York to talk all about what FAU has been doing during the tournament and what to expect out of K-State's opponent coming up tomorrow at 5:09 Central Time. We've also got some What Is Wrong With You coming your way. We will find our weekly champion. And right now, we're going to hear from the head Wildcat, Jerome Tang. He spoke a little bit earlier on this afternoon, as did some of the players. There was well over half an hour's worth of press conference from Ish Massoud and Keontae Johnson and Jerome Tang. And to be completely honest with you, we do not have the time to air that kind of content. So we are going to hear some of the nuts and bolts, the highlights from what Jerome Tang had to say last hour. One thing we did have to cut that didn't fit in under the time limit, but I did want to bring up, he shared a story about why he spoke to the family yesterday before the game of the family of a K-State student who had passed away recently or within the last couple of years. And they were there, and Jerome Tang spoke to them, and he shared his own personal story as to why he wanted to talk to them and why then he wanted to talk to them. I'm not going to steal his thunder, but if you want to go search that out, you can find it. It was asked by a Wichita TV station. You can find the video of Tang's full press conference on YouTube. Go search it out. He's a truly, truly tremendous person, along with basketball coach. And again, just really factors into why this K-State team is so easy to root for and cheer for this March. So without further ado, let's get to some of those highlights from what Jerome Tang had to say earlier this afternoon from Madison Square Garden.
Jerome, as an assistant at Baylor, you've been on both sides of the Elite Eight. The joy of winning it to get to the Final Four and feeling that pain of losing. How do you describe what an Elite Eight game is like?
You know, I've always heard that it's probably the hardest game to win. You know, I mean, both teams know that they're right there. And so, yeah, I've experienced both. You know, we're going to, like the guy said, we have the same old boring habits, and we're going to work on going 1-0. And, you know, I just grateful to be here, because you think how many coaches never get a chance to play in an Elite Eight, and you just said I have been in 3 of them already. And so I'm so blessed.
Just a quick follow-up. What was that swing like of the win versus the video?
Look, come on, man. When you lose, the season's over, right? Like there's no way to describe it. It's such an abrupt end, right? And you got guys that you're never gonna be with again. And yeah, it's not a great feeling. And then when you win, I mean, it's exhilaration, and it's something that you work so hard for. It took us, I think, like 18 years to do it, and to that was just one of the best feelings that I got from a basketball experience in my life.
We'll stay here in the front row on the aisle with Bonnie.
Jerome, I believe it was a year ago today that you were announced as the new coach. I'm not certain of that, but I believe it was. And I'm curious, after so many years at Baylor, did you know the persona you would have when you finally became a head coach, or did you get on the job and start saying, this is who I'll be, how I'll be? How did you feel that out?
I'm just being me. This is who I am. I've always been like this. I mean, I'm not doing anything different than I hadn't done for the last 19 years. I just did it behind the scenes. And now, you know, for some reason, social media, I guess it might be Jerome Dowling is it got me out there. But yeah, I've been the same guy all this time, and I was never going to change.
Rustin Dodd from The Athletic. Jerome, can you take me back to when Keontae committed to you guys? I know it was later in the process in the summertime. Do you remember just kind of where you were and how the staff kind of reacted to that news?
I can take you back to when he didn't commit, because we were getting ready to go on vacation as a staff together, and he had told us that he would tell us on August 11th. And but he didn't clear it with his mom first, so Miss Nika was a little upset, so she wouldn't let him do it on the 11th. So we're on vacation and we're waiting for him to call and let us know, and he doesn't let us know. So you really can't celebrate, you can't, if something gonna go wrong. Then he visits Nebraska after we get back, and then after he goes to Nebraska, he comes back and it's school's about to start the next day, and he says, all right, I'm coming. So we felt like we was gonna get him, but then once he does it, you don't really have time to celebrate. You got to get him in school and get him there. And so it wasn't the big party that we had wanted it to be. But very thankful that it did happen.
Scott Rich in KSAT Athletics. Keontae's had some great dunks this year. How would you rate the one last night? And secondly, just what has he meant to your team from a playmaking standpoint this year?
I don't rate the dunks. Well, top three. I'm not going to tell you what order. And what has he meant to the team? Man, just it's real. I think it's very evident to see what he does on the floor, but I'm just telling y'all what he does off the floor in the locker room, and how he's just one of the guys and treats everybody the same, and all his teammates love him. It's just, you can't quantify it, how it impacts the chemistry of the team. And guys just root for each other because they see this guy he's clearly gifted, right? But he just acts like one of the guys, and I appreciate that.
We'll go one row back on the end, and then we're going to go same row on the aisle.
Zach was on your post. Jerome, what was it like when you take the job? How did it go with deciding you wanted to keep Marquise or trying to convince him to stay? He obviously, not a lot of high majors believed in him. I was told Kansas State was the only high major to offer him when he transferred out of Arkansas Little Rock. You just how did that kind of whole process go?
Well, I got the chance to watch him play for a whole year and help scout and develop a defensive plan for him. And watching film while I was at Baylor, I told our staff, him he's a Baylor guard, he could play for us at Baylor. And then I also thought, pound for pound, he was the toughest kid in the conference. So when I was interviewing for the job, and he was one of the people that I was like, man, I got to make sure I keep him. And then after I got the job, our first team meeting, he had incredible eye contact when I spoke to the team, and he was nodding very positively. And I just felt like there was a connection there. Found out a few weeks later that he had actually texted our athletic director, Gene Taylor, my name as somebody he should look at, and that he had told Gene he was planning to stay and help the program win. And so, knowing that, just that kind of buy-in and that kind of belief, it was just incredible. So it really wasn't anything that I did. This is this kid and this young man, and he's just incredible.
I was told that his older brother actually did a lot of research on you.
Yeah, Marcus does a lot of research, and I never even thought anybody paid attention to what I did, right? Scott is a rock star, and it's amazing that how people pay attention to everything you do. And that's a lesson for our guys to learn, that everything they do, somebody's paying attention to it, and it could impact your future.
Jamie Percent, Manhattan Mercury. Like Vahe said, it has been exactly a year since that introductory press conference, and it's a great day to be a Wildcat, and it's not going to take long. Have you processed that? Have you processed what all has happened in the span of 365 days?
I don't know, you can fully process all of that, but I and like I always say that this wonderful book that I read, it says that the power of life and death are in the tongue, and we have the ability to speak life to people or to speak death to people. And everyone talks about positive thinking and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's right there in the scripture. And I can't tell you that I thought about what I was saying at that time, but I do believe that it was the Spirit of God speaking through me, and therefore it inspired me to live to those words that were spoken.
You've been coaching now 30 years in only 3 places, and most of the time, obviously, at 2 places. It's a very itinerant profession. It's very rare. Is that something that you wanted to, shape your career like? Did it just kind of happen? Like, is it something that you appreciate and like? Like, why did it go that way for you, and are you happy with it?
Well, I'm super thankful for the way things have gone. I can't tell you in the midst of going through it that I was, because I couldn't see the big picture. I could have stayed at Heritage Christian and been the youth pastor at the church for the rest of my life. It was the best job in America. And I always feel like wherever I'm at, it's like the best place in the world. And I got to the point where I was at Baylor that I told God that if he wanted me to be an assistant for the rest of my life, I was okay with that, because my identity was not going to be caught up in a title. And if he wanted me to quit coaching and go into ministry and do something different, I was willing to do that too. I just wanted to do what he wanted me to do in my life. And I felt when I got to that point in my life that I wasn't pursuing a title, God allowed me to experience some great things. I always talk about the fruits of our labor. It's very rare you get to be somewhere and start something and then watch it come to completion or reach its pinnacle. And I got to see that at Baylor, start from the bottom, and we built that thing and win a national championship. And so it was great that I got to experience the fruits of our labor, both Scott and I together. And so I think I'm a pretty loyal guy, and when I'm all in, I'm all in. And so that's just kind of how I live my life.
Yeah. And the phrase "crazy faith" that we see in the t-shirts, you use it all the time. It's obvious that religious faith is very important to you. When it comes to your team, is that word faith referring to religious faith? Is it referring to faith in team? Like how do you define what faith means within your program, and how you want your players and everybody around to sort of perceive it?
I want every individual in our team to experience their own faith, and what that means, whether it's faith in their teammates, whether it's faith in the coaching staff, whether it's my faith in them. Obviously, for me personally, it's my faith in my beliefs, and my faith in what family means, and my faith in what, how to love people. That's what that means to me. And so I want everyone to be able to put their own definition and their own add their own story to what that word faith means. I just know that I don't know if y'all ever saw the video when Scott got the job at Baylor. It was like he looked like he was 14, and he says, "I didn't come to Baylor to win a game. I came to win a national championship," right? And everybody thought he was crazy, right? This little kid saying that, and he got a lot of backlash for it because of what had happened. And then 18 years later, we win a national championship, and all they can do is play that video over and over, and they say, what great faith he had. And they called him crazy early, and then they called it faith late. And so that's what we call crazy faith. And that's what I tried to tell the guys. I'm going to say, we're going to go to the NCAA tournament. And at the Big 12 Media Day, people thought I was crazy. And now that we are here, they're like, man, what great faith. And so we've just lived by this crazy faith of believing in each other, that we can accomplish anything together if we love each other and we play with joy.
Coach, two-parter for you on Marquise. I'll ask both at once. First of all, I wonder if you could just break it down. What makes him such a great passer? Is it his precision, or is it his vision on the court, or what makes him so great? And then second part, your face lit up. You had the biggest smile I've seen when he thanked God on the court in that post-game interview right after the game last night. How proud were you of him in that moment, and what did that mean to you?
What allows him to be such a great passer? It's his confidence. He has great vision, but he also has this confidence, kind of like Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. They think they can like thread that ball through anywhere, and he really feels like he can get it there. So he has this great precision, this great confidence and vision that he was blessed with. The smile on my face. We talk about winning interviews all the time, and to talk about your why, whether it's your family, your faith, whatever it is, talk about your why. Then, then it's about your teammates, and then finally, then talk about, yourself or how you was able to contribute to what happened in that game. And he went in order. He talked about his why, and then he talked about his teammates, and it's just really cool to see guys like grow and develop in that aspect.
That is Jerome Tang, the head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats, speaking just a little bit earlier on at Madison Square Garden. Great stuff, as always, from Jerome Tang. He's a very engaging speaker, I think. It is amazing when you watch Marquise Noel find guys cutting to the basket and find some of those assists. I mean, there are plenty of great passers out there in the college game, but it really takes someone who has a lot of confidence in himself and is not afraid of the risk to throw, no look. It's almost like in volleyball, I remember doing warm-ups, and we would do, cross-court hits, we'd do cross-body hits, and we would do slice hits. And the cross-body ones, you would try to go along the strong side of the court, right along the line. And you'd go up, and you'd almost face the setter as you went up to the net, and you would swing down across your body, obviously, given the name of the hit. That's how Marquise Noel passes the ball. Like, he'll cut across the width of the court and just no look right across his body like he's trying to hit a line shot in volleyball, and it ends up right in the hands of guys. Who was it? Naquan Tomlin, who I think caught one a little bit low and finished last night, and a Michigan State player, I can't remember who it was defensively. I mean, you swear he almost got his fingernail on it, but it whizzed right by him. Tomlin scoops it up and finishes it. It's amazing, and it's risky as hell. Like, I don't think it's one of those things where probably you see it a bunch and you think, Noel's going to make that pass. Kind of like those 3-pointers, always going to make it. Or to go to Jerome Tang's comparison there, you see Aaron Rodgers thread the needle. You see Patrick Mahomes throw the needle. You probably start to take it for granted after a while. That's really hard to do. And that takes a ton of confidence. And that's a credit to Marquise, and it's a credit to this coaching staff, and specifically Jerome Tang, for working out the kinks in his game and turning those risks into such money plays.
There were a couple of his 19 assists last night when he went into the lane and the defense collapsed on him and he started to let the ball go. And I wondered, well, who's going to be on the other end of this? How is this going to find its way to a teammate? And then invariably it would. And that teammate would have either a layup or an open look from three. It's all about vision, reading of the game, understanding that if the defender who is helping on me is coming from here, that means that's a portion of the court that's vacated, and I have to trust that one of my teammates is going to be in that space so I can thread it through to that space, which will then be occupied by a cutting Keontae Johnson or David Gasson or Naquan Tomlin or whoever it is. But that's the kind of understanding that you develop through the course of the season. I mean, a lot of the turnovers that we've complained about for Kansas State this year, how many of them do you think were Marquise Noel throwing a pass and maybe it's back in December or even January and a guy's just not there to fill the space, or it's just not quite as catchable and
right.
Bigs aren't ready for the ball to be there at that velocity in that spot. But now I think you see guys filling those gaps, getting into the lane, making sure that they're there when Noel draws a crowd on a drive to the basket, making sure that they're in a position where they can receive a pass, and then working on your hands, working on your catching. Naquan Tomlin catch that pass in November? I don't know that he does.
No.
But he makes that play here now in March because you've worked on it. You've had that time to get accustomed to your teammates, and they've had the chance to get accustomed to you. It shows great teamwork. It shows great leadership. And we have not talked about it a lot in relation to Jerome Tang because the attention that he has gotten for the job he's done has been about what he did off the court, how he put this team together, how he got this team to believe things were possible, a lot of the intangible stuff. I think it's become very clear that he and his staff do a tremendous job in game.
Yeah.
I haven't left many games this year thinking, man, Jerome Tang messed that up, or Kansas State didn't make an adjustment they should have made there. There have been a couple of situations where I thought, I don't love how he handled the foul situation here, or, oh, I wish he would have called a timeout 2 or 3 possessions earlier. You know, those kinds of things. But as far as like putting together a scout and making in-game adjustments and finding ways to win, he's got some victories in his collection this year that include Hall of Fame coaches. He's beaten Bill Self. He's beaten John Calipari. He just beat Tom Izzo. Hall of Famers, all of them. And I don't think we pay quite enough attention because the off the court and the intangible is so compelling and in some ways moving with Jerome Tang that I think we overlook the fact that he and his staff have proven to be pretty excellent with the in-game stuff too, the X's and O's stuff, the finding ways to get the team. Kansas State shot 56% last night. And it's not, I mean, did they have some what Tom Izzo called lucky shots? And Tom Izzo's still getting grief on K-State Twitter for that throughout today. Like, yeah, that Marquise Noel runner that he banked in to beat the shot clock when he had just gotten back in the game, that is a lucky shot. It's okay to say that's a lucky shot. It's probably not okay to whine about it after you just lost an overtime game in the NCAA tournament, but I think we can all look at that and say objectively that that shot or the one that David Gasson threw in from 3 to beat a shot clock early in the game, like those are not generally shots you expect to go in that Kansas State made. That's one thing. But if you shoot 56% over 45 minutes of basketball, you are getting easy shots. And it's not just Noel and it's not just the teamwork that makes those things happen. It's coaching to call the plays, to exploit a mismatch, to exploit a coverage, to see something in the scout that you then convey to your on-court leaders who then put it into practice. Like, this is a well-oiled machine.
We'll talk a little bit about this matchup between K-State and Florida Atlantic in the Elite Eight coming up later on this hour with Kevin Fielder from 247 Sports. Right now, though, we need to take a break. We'll come back, find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. Before we preview KU versus FAU, we have to get to our weekly winner for What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk. Our current winner for the week, they were yesterday's winners, the dumbass deputies down in South Carolina who shot each other during drills or practice or training or whatever it was.
They were horsing around with their guns. Not a great start to a story. And one of them jokingly shot at the other with a gun full of blanks. And that deputy got upset and reached for his own weapon, forgetting that he'd already traded out his training weapon full of blanks for his actual weapon full of bullets and shot the other deputy in the foot.
Great. Morons.
To protect and serve.
What's your story for today?
Okay, we are going to Pennsylvania, Fountain Hill, Pennsylvania, and we meet a gross guy, 41-year-old Eric Gratz of Albertus. He's the borough manager for Fountain Hill in Lehigh County, and he has been charged with solicitation to commit prostitution with a 17-year-old girl who was serving as a junior firefighter with the Fountain Hill Fire Department.
Oh, my God.
The two exchanged phone numbers for work purposes, and the probe determined after a February complaint was made in February to the mayor's office that Gratz used a borough-provided cell phone to text the girl numerous times, offering to pay her money for sexual acts at his home. The district attorney noted that the investigation revealed no evidence of actual sexual contact. Gratz has served as the borough manager since August of 2021. He's been released on $5,000 unsecured bail. So he is using the company phone, the city phone, the borough phone to ask a minor to do things for him.
Both a pervert and a moron.
Yes.
That's a great double whammy.
We do. We have the daily double on this Friday. Not just a creepo, but also a total dummy.
Oh, my God. That is disgusting. Yeah. Disgusting. That makes my skin crawl.
Also, his head looks like a thumb.
My story is going to take us to Poughkeepsie, New York, where a student and two of his family members were arrested after a Wednesday morning incident at Poughkeepsie High School. A struggle between staff, the student's mother, and an uncle resulted in a large police response from the city and town of Poughkeepsie, along with the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office deputies around 10 a.m. Too early for this nonsense, man. Initial reports indicate that the 18-year-old student was brought to the principal's office as part of an investigation into the possession of drugs. Don't bring your drugs to school, guys, or have them, period. The student became combative with administrators, and police were summoned. As the officers were interacting with the student, his mother and uncle arrived with the intent of stopping the teen from being taken into custody. Again, why don't you just say, don't bring your drugs to school? The mother, 34-year-old Jessica Godoy, as well as the teen's uncle, 36-year-old Jose Carpio, who was also carrying an infant child in his arms, began struggling with the school staff. Officers who were struggling with the teen radioed for assistance, bringing additional officers to the school to restore peace. Carpio, a convicted felon, also threatened to leave the school and return with a gun to shoot it up.
Oh, gosh.
This is a felon who is then threatening to commit a school shooting. You will never believe this, but he was charged with felony making terroristic threats, as well as the endangering of the welfare of a child, criminal trespassing, and harassment. He was immediately sent back to jail because, again, he is a convicted felon.
Threatening to do that at a school while holding an infant and struggling, fighting, getting into it, mixing it up with school staff.
About as gross as possible. This is the worst day of What Is Wrong With You ever. I hate everyone involved in all of these stories.
Apples not falling far from trees, I think, is the theme of this particular story.
I'm going to make this easy. Neither of these beats the deputies. Neither.
Yeah, I almost don't want to crown a winner.
No,
I don't want to say either of these people are winners.
Disqualification.
Yeah, we got the old WWE style double DQ and the real life Super Troopers.
Yeah, that's what the name was, the real life Super Troopers. I knew we had a name for them. That is our winner today, and they are going to advance on and be our weekly champions in What Is Wrong With You. They will advance on to next week's championship for the month. We've got to get to a break. Kevin Fielder of 247 Sports joins us next to break down K-State versus FAU on 580 Sports Talk. and Dan back with you on 580 Sports Talk on this Feel Good Friday afternoon, March 24th, as we get ready for some Sweet 16 action coming up tonight on Westwood 1. You'll hear that right here on 580 WIBW. And coming up tomorrow, you'll hear it on the K-State Sports Radio Network. The Kansas State Wildcats looking for their first berth in the Final Four. Well, long before either Dan or I were born. They will be taking on the Owls of Florida Atlantic with a bid to try to get there and to talk all about FAU and to go behind enemy lines. We welcome into the program Kevin Fielder, Florida Atlantic writer for Owls247 of the 247 Sports Network. You can follow Kevin and all of his work on Twitter as well at the Kevin Fielder. Kevin, thank you so much for jumping on the program. We appreciate the time. How are you enjoying the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden, and all New York has to offer this week?
You know, outside of the weather, I am still a Florida man by all accounts, and I am used to weather that is not in the 50s or even lower. Other than that, though, New York has been great. Madison Square Garden was unique, and I think the games yesterday between both the Kansas State and the Michigan State game and the Tennessee FAU game made that whole experience even better.
We have understandably hit on a bunch of the K-State performance from last night, a bunch during the course of our show today. But I want to ask you about that game for FAU against Tennessee. And it felt for a lot of that game like Tennessee was leading, but it was kind of a tenuous lead. Like, man, they should be up more now given the way this game is going. And FAU just kept chiseling away, hanging around. And eventually the Owls just went berserk at the end of that game. And I thought really played well over the last 10, 12 minutes or so. What were your overall thoughts on the way FAU performed in that win last night?
I think you hit the nail on the head there with, it sort of felt like Tennessee was holding on to a lead that they didn't really deserve. And I had tweeted, I think, early on in the second half that if FAU just found one run, not even a huge run, they wound up getting a huge run in the end, but if they just found one run in that game, they were going to be able to pull away and get the win. Because Tennessee wasn't shooting the ball well. They were allowing easy shots for FAU, and the ball just wasn't going in the net. When the ball started going in the net, FAU had no problems extending their lead. And I think that goes to show how good FAU is at sort of keeping in game, keeping it tight. And then when they need to find that last little stretch of momentum, they're able to find it every time. And, that's the reason why to this point they have 34 wins. They only have 3 losses. And, 2 of those losses were to good conference teams in Middle Tennessee and UAB. And I think it just goes to show that this is a team that, whatever you throw at them, they're going to find an answer. It may just not be early on in the game.
A good friend of our program is CJ Moore from The Athletic, and he's been on something of a crusade on Twitter the last couple of days of saying, hey, talk about how good this FAU team is, but do not call them a Cinderella. They're just that good. I mean, a program record for wins in a year. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first ever Sweet 16 and now Elite 8 for the program. Just over the course of the season, in general, what has made this Florida Atlantic team so good to end up winning and getting to the NCAA tournament out of a surprisingly good Conference USA as a whole?
Yeah, well, first of all, not only is it their first Sweet 16 Elite 8, it was their first tournament win, and it was their second ever tournament. This is a team that didn't deserve to be here by all accounts, if we look at history. Now, in terms of them getting to this point, I think it's been on the back of 2 real key players for them. It's Elijah Martin and John L. Davis. Elijah Martin was really good last season, and it felt like heading into this year he was going to have another good season. Similarly, John L. Davis, I thought, had good moments last year. This season, he's put it all together. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they've just found key contributors throughout the lineup. They're one of the deeper teams in the country. They like to run 9 guys throughout the game. And, they're not afraid to put these 9 guys in whenever they need a bucket. I don't think it's like other college basketball teams where, you may play 7, maybe 8 guys, but those last 2 guys aren't really getting a lot of minutes. This is a team that's going to run a lot of guys. They're going to make a lot of substitutions, and that helps a lot of these guys stay fresh. There's never a time where some of these players struggle to stay in shape or struggle to stay on the court because they're getting subbed out constantly when they're close to getting tired. And that helps a lot when you're playing at this point now, 37 game season, because you haven't had a guy play 40 minutes in a game, and you haven't needed a guy to play 40 minutes in a game. So now if you get to the point where you need to shorten these benches and, go to 8, 7 guys, I don't think Dusty May will, but if you get to that point, then you're going to have guys who are fresher than other teams in the country.
Our guest is Kevin Fielder. He covers Florida Atlantic athletics for Owls247, the official 24/7 sports website of Florida Atlantic Athletics. Bit of a tongue twister there. You can find Kevin on Twitter at the Kevin Fielder. Kevin, tell us a little more about the two guards you just mentioned. Elijah Martin and Janelle Davis have pretty similar season stats. 13 points, 5 boards, an assist and a half. Both of them shooting about 37, 38% from behind the three-point arc. How do they complement each other? And is it fair to say that what we've seen so far in the tournament, where Davis has kind of emerged as the alpha, has that been the trend throughout the season, that when it has been bucket getting time or takeover time, that he's kind of been the guy that this team is fed off of?
I don't think it really has been one of these situations where, John L. Davis has sort of overtaken that role. I think it's FAU playing to the hot hand, and John L. Davis to this point has been the hot hand in the tournament. He struggled in the first half against Tennessee, had 13 in the second half. Against FDU in round 2, he had a 25-point, 10 rebound, 5 assists, 5 steal performance, the first ever in NCAA tournament history. He's just playing the best basketball right now. So he's going to be the guy that FAU looks for when they need a bucket. As for him and Elijah Martin complementing, you do play very similar. They're both guards who like to slash and like to try and get into the paint and then make plays from there. But I think the unique thing is that they're also really good at shooting the basketball. And, as you mentioned, they're both in the high 30s for shooting the basketball, which means that they can stretch the floor still and they can make, spot up three-pointers, and they can impact the game in different ways. Elijah Martin is one of the better defenders on the team as well, which helps them when they're playing some of these really good guards, guys like Kendrick Davis against Memphis, and then earlier in the year against UAB, they played Jared Jelly Walker, who's one of the better scoring guards in the country. And so when you have a guy like Elijah Martin, he's so impactful defensively. And then John L. Davis, I think, is so impactful as a player, as a scorer. They really do complement each other well, even if they do play very similar styles.
To get to the Elite Eight, what has leveled up for Florida Atlantic over the course of this 3-game run so far in the tournament? The 1-point win over Memphis in the opening round, the 8-point win over Fairleigh Dickinson in the round of 32, and then the 7-point win over Tennessee last night. What things have maybe gone to another level as this team has played well in this tournament run?
The first thing has been the play of Nick Boyd in the tournament. Nick Boyd has, struggled a little bit to stay healthy. Last season, he missed all of last season, and I think that's bigger. It's part of the big reason why head coach Dusty May has said multiple times that, this is the team that he thought would make it to the tournament this year. And, Nick Boyd now in the tournament has played great basketball. He made the game-winning layup against Memphis. He had a really, a solid game against Tennessee. He's a guy who can impact the game in a lot of different ways. And, he's a guy who, when you need a timely shot or a timely defensive play, he's going to be the one to do it. And I think that sort of carries on to why they've been so good in the tournament, is because when they've needed plays, they've found plays. And, when you get to the tournament, it's not about winning pretty. You don't need to win pretty in the tournament. You just need to win the game. Survive and advance is a real thing. And so FAU has survived a lot, and they've also advanced because of key plays throughout the games. And, I look at Nick Boyd, and I look at guys like Brian Greenlee and Mike Forrest against Tennessee. These depth players, these role players, finding ways to win the game when they need to helps FAU a lot, because then it's not just John L. Davis and Elijah Martin having to go for 35 points or whatever to win a game.
As somebody who attended Florida Atlantic, who has covered the athletic department the way that you have, maybe this is a question that you'll have a better answer for in 2, 3, 4 weeks' time, whenever this is all said and done for the Owls. What has this meant for Florida Atlantic athletics? What has this meant for the university? What has this run represented for an athletic department that, again, you're operating in the mid-major space, getting ready to move up from Conference USA to the American Athletic Conference? What is the significance of what Dusty May's program has been able to accomplish already to this point?
I think the biggest thing is it's put the university on the map. People are talking about FAU. Whether it's them talking about the run or them talking about this, that, or the other thing, people are now noticing FAU, and that helps a lot in terms of getting their name out there and getting different deals and getting more publicity. The other thing I think has been that the fan base has rallied behind them. FAU Stadium, I'm sure a lot of people have seen pictures of it. It's 3,000 people. It's about a high school gym. But they had 7,000 requests for tickets for the Sweet 16. and they only had 1,000 available tickets. There were so many people that wanted to go to New York to watch this team, and the way that the university has rallied behind this basketball team has helped a lot in terms of putting the name of this university out there and helping put guys on the map as well. I think John L. Davis, Elijah Martin are quickly becoming household names in the college basketball space because of FAU's run. And these are guys who are now going to help their stock a lot in terms of, potentially the NBA. But for the university in particular, I think I'll probably, as you mentioned, have a better answer in a few weeks. But I think the biggest thing is it's boosted engagement on social media, and it's helped put this university on the map a little bit more than just, hey, it's a beach university, or it's a university in a beach town.
We're chatting with Kevin Fielder, who covers Florida Atlantic Owls athletics for Owls247, part of the 247 Sports Network. You can find him on Twitter as well at the Kevin Fielder. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk to chat about the Elite Eight matchup between K-State and the Florida Atlantic Owls. And Kevin, I wanted to ask you about this Kansas State team that your Owls are going to be facing coming up tomorrow, late afternoon Central Time, 5:09 Central, 6:09 Eastern. What stands out to you on tape the most about this K-State team?
I mean, it's hard to look past Marquise Noel. Marquise Noel, at this point, is the best playmaker in the country. His ability to see the floor is second to none. And I think that helps that offense a lot because I had actually asked Jerome Tang about this after the game, about how he helps the offense. And it was, all 10 eyes on defense have to account for him. All 10 eyes are looking at him. It helps get other guys open. And so that helps lead that offense. I think Keontae Johnson as well has helped score the ball a lot this season. I think some of these role players have played really well for Kansas State down the stretch, and that's sort of the big difference. You need key role players to make plays in March, and Kansas State has gotten so much that, and that's helped them beat teams like Michigan State and Kentucky, who may have the star talent, but may struggle at times bringing in guys off the bench.
So what then is the plan if you are Dusty May, you're Florida Atlantic? What is the plan to not stop Marquise Noel, because no one has quite been able to figure that out in tournament play as of yet, but what is the plan to try to slow him down? Is it essentially force him to take those 30-foot threes? Is it try to make some of the ancillary pieces, the Cam Carters, the Naquan Tomlins, make them shoot the ball more often? What do you think the defensive strategy is going to be to try to limit Noel's impact?
I think it has to be the second one. I think you have to let some of these secondary, these auxiliary pieces make plays. You're not going to stop Marquise Noel for 40 minutes. No team has done it in the tournament, and most teams haven't done it during the season. So it's really sort of a fruitless effort to go, hey, just go out there and stop him. You're not going to stop him for the entire game. So try and make some of these other guys make plays. It's sort of the thing of, do you want Marquise Noel to beat you, or do you want a guy like Cam Carter to beat you? And I think if you ask every team in the country, they're going to go, I'd much rather have Cam Carter beat me than Marquise Noel beat me. And so if you can find a way to let these other guys, force them into making plays, force them into being the guys, that may help you the most, because I don't think there's really a way to stop what Marquise Noel can do on offense, because he's such a shifty guard. He can score and he can play make. And that's sort of unique for the point guard position across college basketball for a guy who can do both at such a high level.
All right, Kevin, let's look ahead then to this matchup in and of itself. We've got FAU, which is one of the best stories of the tournament, coming from Conference USA, 30-plus wins, their first ever Elite Eight, versus Kansas State, trying to get back to the Final Four for the first time since the 1960s. They've got maybe the biggest rising star, supernova star of this tournament in Marquise Noel, Who do you think comes out with the victory here? Is it going to be the upstarts from FAU, or is it going to be the Power 5 upstarts from K-State?
I think it's going to be FAU. I've sort of been on this train of FAU is one of the best teams in the country. And as you mentioned earlier, they're not a Cinderella. They don't want to be called a Cinderella. They're a top 25 basketball team that's still playing in March. And so I think that FAU is just going to do enough offensively to win this game. And I will say that is not a slight on Kansas State at all. I think the more I've watched Kansas State, the more I've come impressed with how they play. And I've sat down today, and I've had the time to sit down and watch a couple of their games throughout the season. And you can see the growth that they've had from the first game in November to now in March. And every single game they've improved at certain things. And so this is going to be a tight matchup. This is a toss-up of all toss-ups. And I just think that FAU is going to come out because they're more experienced. These guys have been playing together for years, and that helps a lot when you get into March. And I think that between that and then the play of guys like John L. Davis, Elijah Martin, Nick Boyd, and then the big men, Vlad Golden, Giancarlo Rosado, they're just going to have enough to push them over the edge offensively. And, it may be another one of these games where whoever goes on the last run wins the game. And, if it's Kansas State who goes on the run, no one will be surprised. If it's FAU, vice versa, no one will be surprised.
The numbers do indeed back up that prediction. KenPom actually has Florida Atlantic as a slight favorite in this game. We can't wait for it. Coming up tomorrow, 5:09 Central, it'll be K-State versus Florida Atlantic. And to preview that Elite Eight tilt from the FAU perspective, Kevin Fielder from FAU's Owls247 site over at 247 Sports joins us here on the program to talk all about the Owls. You can find him on Twitter at the Kevin Fielder. And again, go to Owls247 if you want to see all of the FAU perspective on this matchup. That's the best place where you can go find it. Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that the grind of covering the NCAA tournament is a very busy time, so thank you so much, and enjoy the game coming up tomorrow. One way or the other, it should be a blast.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
That is Kevin Fielder from Owls247. Really good insight into that FAU program. They are having a whale of a year, man. They've been awesome all year round.
Yeah, they're legit good. Like,
yes.
This is not, I know it's tempting to label them a Cinderella, and I mean, team from Conference USA who's a 9 seed. Look, sorry, that's what people are going to call you, but they're 34-3 and not by accident. Yeah. Like they've pulled out some big wins. That was a big boy, tough guy win they earned coming back on a very good defensive Tennessee team last night.
We'll talk more NCAA tournament and get you ready for more Sweet 16 coverage coming up in the final half hour of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, half an hour left this week and this afternoon on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you. Thank you for being a part of the program all week long. What a week it has been on 580 Sports Talk. We're still taking your texts, your thoughts on anything that we are talking about today about K-State, FAU, Michigan State, whatever it might end up being. Hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429. You can also jump into the comment section on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our account, our channel, if you will. We are going to get to a quick final word coming up later on. We're going to join Westwood One in progress for the start of Sweet 16 coverage tonight. Last night was kind of nice that K-State was done early. Well, not done early, but they were the first game. You can just kind of like enjoy basketball the rest of the night without any buildup after it. I kind of like that.
Yeah, because the 2 night games, it was kind of perfect because if you were dialed into K-State, then you didn't pay much mind to Alabama UConn, Arkansas UConn, which you didn't need to pay much mind to because that was a beat 'em down express from the very beginning. And then you could just bask in the glow of a K-State win and enjoy 2 bangers coming up at night because Florida Atlantic, Tennessee, it was kind of a bore at first, and then Florida Atlantic made it fun by making shots and making their run. And then UCLA Gonzaga was every bit as awesome as we thought it might be.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. So we're going to talk more NCAA tournament here in just a minute. And again, we will be joining Westwood One in progress. First game of the day for the Sweet 16 today, San Diego State, Alabama. We'll have Miami versus Houston in the second game. So the 2 1 seeds out of the way early. Creighton versus Princeton at 8 o'clock. And then at 8:45, Texas versus Xavier. We'll get you some picks before we go off the air as well. Let's just dive right into it. The action from last night. One final thought on K-State, Michigan State. I know we've talked so much about it, and we'll do post-game after the Elite Eight game as well coming up tomorrow night. But what is Tom Izzo doing? Like, who are you trying to impress? Who are you trying to make feel better by talking about K-State's lucky shots and our shots just didn't go in? Like, why? Why are Calipari and Izzo continuing to do nonsense like this?
Because they're old and sour. Like, they're just cranky. I think Izzo in particular has reached that stage of his career where he's just kind of a crank.
Yeah.
An old cranky man who's cranky with his players and cranky about the officiating. And doesn't mean he's not still a great coach, gets the most out of his players, succeeds in the tournament, all those things. But just you get older, you get crankier. It happened to all of them. It happened to Boeheim. It happened to Krzyzewski. Literally all of them have this happen to them.
Man, I totally missed the game this year where Tom Izzo wore a Christmas sweater and was dressed like an elf and got a technical foul. I totally glossed over that. I just had to Google his age, and I came across a picture of it.
Also,
incredible.
What was my guy talking about? Oh, man, we just couldn't make shots. Sir, you were 49% from the field and 52% from 3 and 18 of 22 from the line. Sounds like a lot of your shots went in.
I get that they're old, and Cal was weird last week, but I guess, he did call Marquise Noel water under the bridge, whatever. But, like, not everyone does that. Jay Wright didn't do that. Bill Self doesn't do that. A lot of coaches don't do nonsense like that. I get you probably feel like I've been around, I'm the elder statesman, I can do whatever I want, but you don't have to. You don't have to act like that. You can just say, yeah, they got us. You can go moan and complain in your locker room all you want, but just say, yeah, K-State played great. Marquise Noel, man, what a player. We just didn't have quite enough tonight. You don't have to say this.
Hats off to Kansas State. They were the better team tonight.
What a year for Jerome Tang. Yeah. You don't have to talk like that. Come on.
That was not the most flagrant thing he said in the postgame. The most flagrant thing he said in the postgame was that the Big Ten is the best league in the country.
Yeah, it's very dumb. Very, very dumb. They are not even the second best. They're not the third best league in the country.
No.
It's Big 12. It's SEC. It is Big East.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to flip those other two, and that's not even a shot, I think, at the SEC. The Big East was awesome and probably did not get nearly enough attention over the course of the year. Get out of my face. I understand why he's saying that. Get out of my face.
The Big Ten. 9/11 happened more recently than the last time the Big Ten won an NCAA championship.
But Izzo has that, so,
Yeah, I mean, at least he's the one who won it.
Unbelievable.
No Sweet 16 teams. 8 teams in the tournament. No Sweet 16 teams.
No,
Or
Elite
Eight teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
8 in, none left.
unbelievable.
Also, we talked the other day about what a championship would mean to the programs who are left.
Mhm.
We are out of programs who have won national championships before. They're all out.
So we are guaranteed a new national champion.
We're going to have a new champion.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. Do you have a team, okay, outside of Kansas State, is there a team that you would say, you know what, it'd be really cool if they won it? Like, I'd feel good if that team won it.
Feel good?
Or just like, I would have the most endorphins if this team won. I'd have the biggest release of serotonin if this team won.
That's a good way to put it. Oh,
like, I think for me, it's Creighton. Like, I think Creighton winning would be cool. Also, Nebraska fans would be kind of sad. Although a lot of them are Creighton basketball fans.
I guess maybe Miami, because I like Jim Larrañaga.
Yeah, I like Larrañaga.
An older coach who has yet to become a crank.
Okay. No, that's a good one.
Because, yeah, like the rest of them, like, it's hard to like Texas just on general Big 12 principle.
Correct.
Houston, maybe. It'd be great for the Big 12.
Yeah, it would be.
Kelvin Sampson doesn't have the cleanest like resume. He had the problems in Indiana, but like seems like a decent guy.
FAU
as
would
far
be,
as the industry goes.
Yeah, FAU would be pretty sick, except they play K-State.
Yeah,
like that would be awesome if a 9 seed Florida Atlantic, Boca celebrating a national title. But yeah, they'd have to beat K-State to get there. So that wouldn't be so great. I did want to talk about the Gonzaga UCLA game from last night. That was awesome. That was an awesome game with awesome superstar players. Jaquez was phenomenal. Drew Timme was the best player on the floor. Julian Strother made an all-time great shot. They ran the Chris Jenkins play.
Yeah.
Dribble it down the court, toss to the trailer, take a deep three to it wasn't at the buzzer, but to set up the win. UCLA got a shot. Tiger Campbell had a look from just beyond half court with 1.4 seconds left to try to give UCLA the win at the buzzer. It was an incredible game, and it featured a double meltdown. UCLA was up the entire game. They were up 13 at the half, 46-33, and they didn't make a shot for 11 minutes in the second half, which was remarkable. And then Gonzaga nearly gagged it right back. UCLA took the lead again before that Strother three.
People talking about, there's always the argument about the deep three-pointer and whether or not it's a bad shot. And of course, the easiest way to say it is, well, if it goes in, it's a good shot. If it doesn't go in, it's a bad shot. The thing about that late game situation, the reason I love the way they handled it, first of all, they ran like a recognizable play from NCAA tournament history. It was very rewarding to people who have like watched it. It was a great reset, if you will. They ran the Chris Jenkins play from Villanova's buzzer beater to win their first national championship. And the reason I loved it from a game theory perspective is you're going to shoot quick, because if you miss, then you're going to foul. And then the worst thing that can happen is you're down 3 and you're still going to have a chance to maybe send the game to overtime.
Yeah.
So you want to take a quick shot. It may as well be a 3-pointer, because if you make it, the upside is now you're up by 2 instead of being up by 1. And maybe it changes the mindset for the opposing team after you've done that. And then another great reset, UCLA runs the Bryce Drew play, and it almost worked.
Yeah, it really did.
So that was awesome. That was a terrific NCAA tournament game. Most other nights in tournament history, it would have stood alone, head and shoulders above the rest of the tournament games. But I still think historically, K-State, Michigan State might edge it, just in the sense that you got an all-time individual performance in that game from Marquise Noel, and it builds upon what he's already done in this tournament. Although we also got an all-time individual performance from Drew Timme in the Gonzaga game.
You got the hometown kid narrative in that game too, because that game, Gonzaga UCLA, was in Las Vegas. Julian Strother is from Las Vegas.
Reno, I thought. No, you're right. He is from Vegas. It was Kevin Harlan who said he shot it from Reno. Yes.
Harlan was awesome last night, by the way.
He was. But I don't know, was anybody from Las Vegas, like personally there just to see Julian Strother? I don't think so. Marquise Noel did that in front of Cameron and Carmelo Anthony.
Did you see during the FAU game, someone was beefing with security. Like, I don't know if Noel knew
I
them.
pointed this out to my wife. I was watching. Noel was in the stands. He was
Yeah.
saying hi to some people, and one of the people he was trying to dap up looked like he was going to get into it with this big, beefy security guy.
Yeah, and Noel was trying to play
You could tell
peacemaker. Like,
Marquise
hey,
was like, chill, man.
I didn't know what was said, who the guy was, but yeah, it almost got ugly. And the funny thing was, because they were zoomed in on it, because Allie LaForce was doing a little human interest thing on him. And then I thought, there's going to be a fight on TV. They got to zoom out. So they go back to the game while LaForce is talking, and you can see them. It was like in the lower section. You could see on the left side of the court, Noel and whoever this was in the crowd. It was very funny. I don't know what was said, but it was very funny. Games coming up tonight. What's the most interesting game to you?
Most interesting game tonight? I think it might be San Diego State and Alabama.
Yeah. There's a lot of money that is poured in on this game for San Diego State, to the point where they were a 7.5-point underdog as of last night. Some books moved them to 6.5 points this afternoon.
So they're the older team, right? In fact, in that average age weighted by minutes stat we talked about earlier in the tournament, they are the oldest team remaining. Their average age weighted by minutes is an even 23 years old. And Alabama, they're a young team. They lean on a lot of young players, particularly the freshman Brandon Miller. I think that combination of the relative youth of Alabama, the experience, the age of San Diego State, and the defense that San Diego State likes to play, combined with the fact that sometimes Alabama doesn't make a lot of shots. Like, they're not a great three-point shooting team. I think that Alabama is the most vulnerable of the higher-seeded teams tonight. I expect Houston to be able to take care of Miami. I think they're tougher than Miami. I think Texas will beat Xavier. I think Texas has a little more depth, and I think they're going to have a little too much scoring for Xavier. And I think Creighton's going to dump truck Princeton. I think they're absolutely going to run them off the floor. But I think Alabama might be a little vulnerable tonight. I don't necessarily, I'm not convinced they're going to get beat. I'm not going to sit here and pick the Aztecs, but I wouldn't be shocked. I would be less surprised about that upset than I would about any other upset tonight.
I am going to pick San Diego State to cover 7.5 points for certain. The one thing, and this comes back to a point we've discussed a lot in this tournament, two very different paces that these two teams play at. Alabama, according to the Ken Pomeroy numbers, 5th in the nation in adjusted tempo. They want to get up and down. They want to get off shots. They want to get into the front court quickly. 5th out of 363 teams. San Diego State, 263rd. That is a big, big gap.
I want to point this out real quick because I conflated two fun facts I had in front of me, and it led me to misspeak.
Okay.
So tonight is the first time since 1984 that we've had a day of Sweet 16 games where there are no former NCAA champions. None of the teams playing tonight, San Diego State, Alabama, Miami, Houston, Princeton, Creighton, Xavier, Texas.
UConn's won.
None of the teams playing tonight have won a championship.
Okay.
We still do have one team left in the tournament who has won a national championship. Of course, UConn's got 3. But four, in fact. Yeah, forgot. Yeah, 3 for Calhoun, 1 for Ollie. But the teams, the teams tonight, it's the first time since you have to go back to 1984 for a day of games in the Sweet 16 where there were no past champions. So I want to apologize. I want to thank the texter on the text line from the 785 who alerted me that I may have misspoken, because I read your text and I said, no, I didn't. That's obviously not true. I didn't say that. And then I thought, no, that's exactly what I said. My bad. So thank you for holding me to account there on the text line. It's a fun fact, but it's not the fun fact I was talking about.
So that would have been, I'm trying to do the math here. Well, I don't have the exact dates of the Sweet 16 that year, but yeah, there were a lot of non-former winners in 1984. I'm looking at the bracket right now. Don't know what days they played on though. Anyway, it's still a fun fact. Alabama as a team shoots just under 34% from 3, 33.8% for the year. If they get hot, I think they're gonna run San Diego State off the floor. But because I think they've got more danger if they are hot than if San Diego State is hot. But if San Diego State can control the tempo of the game, who do you trust more? The old guys playing their version of basketball or the young guys who are playing out of sorts and not in the way they like to play basketball? I'm going to take the old guys there. Let's get some picks for the other games here real quick. Dan, Miami, 7.5-point underdog against Houston. I like Miami here. I think Miami is going to keep this one close. I do.
I don't think Miami's real tough. I think Houston's a lot tougher. Now,
Okay.
I didn't think Miami was very tough, and then they out-toughed Indiana, but
Mhm.
Indiana also not a particularly tough team. Miami, at least, they're healthy. Omir is playing. Norshad Omir, their big guy.
Mhm.
He's playing, and he played really well
Yes.
against Indiana, but Houston's got a bunch of guys built like him that they're going to throw.
Mhm.
At Miami's front court, and I just think they're going to frustrate the Wong and Pack backcourt. And I expect Marcus Sasser to have a big game. Now, if he's not close to healthy, like if he's out there and the groin tightens up, and
Mhm.
that certainly could open the door for an upset. But I do like Houston to win and cover the spread.
Creighton versus Princeton. Creighton favored by some places 9.5, some places 10, some 10.5. I don't care. Give me Creighton.
Yeah,
I do not care.
Yeah, they're not really a number big enough, I don't think, out there that you could convince me to bet against Creighton. I just think they're going to run Princeton off the floor. Princeton, not the offensive juggernaut that they looked against Missouri, and Creighton, they are that team. Like,
Yes.
Creighton might have a 6 next to their name right now, but there's a reason people were talking about them as a Final Four team back in November, and we're starting to see why at this point.
I believe that would be their first if they get there. I don't think they've ever been to a Final
I
Four.
think you're right. I don't believe they've ever even been to a Final Four.
In fact, have they been to an Elite Eight? Once. 1941. So that would have been March of 41. World War II had not begun in the United States yet when Creighton last made an Elite Eight.
Yep, that's their last Elite Eight.
Yeah, so history. If Creighton wins tonight, I do think they will get it done. The final game, Xavier versus Texas. I took Xavier plus 4.5 here. I do think Xavier's going to keep this one close. The math really likes Xavier.
They are better defensively right now after the loss of Zach Fremantle, but I still think missing that 15 points a game is going to matter against a Texas team with so many weapons. With Dylan Dessou playing as well as he is right now, having leveled up, I think Texas is really, really starting to peak because they've gotten now a consistent inside scoring presence to go with the scoring of the guards, Carr, Allen, Hunter, Rice off the bench. I think that's going to be a little too much for Xavier to handle.
We will have coverage of the Sweet 16 coming up tonight on Westwood One here on 580 WIBW. In fact, we're going to join Westwood One in progress at the bottom of the hour. So right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back for a final word and finish up this week of 580 Sports Talk. fun day today of 580 Sports Talk. Talking all about K-State's big win over Michigan State, looking ahead to the rest of the Sweet 16. If you've missed any of the show, head to our website. That's 580wibw.com. Hover your mouse over the podcast tab, then just click on 580 Sports Talk. That is where you'll find the podcast hour-by-hour version of the show. We've got coverage of day 2 of the Sweet 16 coming up in just a few minutes. So before we get there, Dan, let's get a final word.
Kansas State is 40 minutes away from the Final Four. What a remarkable sentence. What a remarkable thing to already have accomplished for this team. We have talked earlier this week about, well, Kansas State's history of coming up short in the Elite Eight. In fact, they've lost 7 straight regional finals, and the last 2 to mid-major competition. Butler in 2010, and of course, Loyola in 2018. And that, I think, has K-State fans coming into tomorrow night's game with maybe a little bit of trauma involved. But I'm here to tell you, this Kansas State team doesn't remember those games. This Kansas State team won't carry that trauma into tomorrow night. This Kansas State team locked in, playing with confidence, playing with joy, playing with love. They will be tested. Florida Atlantic is good enough to win this game. Don't get me wrong, but they won't win it because they will outmatch or outmaneuver K-State in any significant way. If K-State plays another excellent 40 minutes of basketball, they are going to the by God Final Four, and I think they can, and I think they will.
To that point, how many people involved in the Kansas State program were around in 2018? Like players, coaches, staff?
Might be 0.
I believe the only one is Bailey Bechamp, who used to be the assistant to Bruce Weber, who's the director of basketball ops. She's been with the program 11 years. I believe she is the only person in the entire program who was around in 2018. That means, for fans, that means something because there's a little trauma, there's a little fear. Oh my God, Butler. Oh my God, Loyola Chicago. What if it happens again? Keontae Johnson could not possibly care less about that. K-State was never even an afterthought for him at the time. Probably the same for Marquise Noel or Naquan. Playing basketball was an afterthought for Naquan Tomlin at the time, right? Like,
right.
This is completely different now. But at the same time, while I think you should be very excited about this, and I'm not going to tell you how to be worried or excited or what, I do implore you, if you're a K-State fan, to appreciate what this has been already. You're not done. You want to get to the Final Four. You want to win a national championship. That's within your grasp. Absolutely. But do not lose track of the fact that you have the player of the tournament, the story of the tournament on your team right now in Marquise Noel. He is the one for this tournament. You've got the best coach in the country this year. You've had some of the best stories with Noel and with Johnson and the entire rebuilding of the team. Like, appreciate what has been so far, because most teams never get to experience that. Most teams don't get to have that supernova on their team, and appreciate what you've already had and get excited because there's a whole lot more to earn. Possibly a first trip to a Final Four since 1964 or whatever it is coming up tomorrow at 5:09. We are, of course, going to have full coverage of that game. Pregame begins at 4 o'clock, tip at 5:09 on the K-State Sports Network right here on 580 WIBW. That is coming up tomorrow. We'll go live on YouTube to recap it right after the game, full reaction, and all of our thoughts on it. Myself, Dan, we'll see if Fulton and Jake can jump on as well. And we'll be with you coming up on Monday to recap the Elite Eight weekend from the NCAA tournament. We've got Westwood One coverage of the Sweet 16 coming up next. For Dan, I'm Brendan. We'll talk to you Monday.